Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about primetime matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Kirk Your Enthusiasm. Today, I am joined by Parker Fleming. He is a longtime SB Nation colleague, recently appointed to editor-in-chief of Grizzly Bear Blues. How are you today, Parker?
Kirk, I'm doing really good, man. Honestly, it's still weird hearing that I'm at the helm of Grizzly Bear Blues since Joe Molinax ran it forever. But we're doing good. Just I'm out here like you, just trying to find different stuff to be excited about and talk about in the August of the off season. So
I like to complain because I took over March 1st, 2020, and then 14 days later the league shut down. And really, this is kind of the first actual break where, either the world wasn't ending or there wasn't some sort of basketball stuff to talk about. And now, like, we're recording, it's August 4th. I'm not sure when I'm going to post this one, probably early next week. But it's just there hasn't been anything going on. And I just posted a ridiculous story, there was something that happened last week where there's a picture of Luke on the internet and he looks like he has not been fed. Like he kind of looks like a skinny bird, which Luke is a bigger man. So it's made the photo somehow made it all the way to the Slovenian media, and they're talking about it. They asked the Slovenian national team strength and conditioning coach, which I was like, I've made this perpetual feedback loop because now that guy's talking about how Luka's in great shape, and it's like, it's August. Who cares if he's in great shape now? If he goes out for 3 weeks, he might, it's so funny. But you're here, and I have been a very quietly envious watcher of the Memphis Grizzlies. So the Grizzlies finished with their first division title in team history last year, finishing a whopping 56-26. They lost in the first round.
Finals. We lost
semifinals. Yeah, they beat the really fun Grizzlies Wolves series where they won 4-2 and then lost to the Warriors, which the Mavericks also lost to the Warriors. So we take some solace in losing to the Warriors together. And then they entered this off season, and I feel like a lot of things have happened. One thing in particular is sticking out in my mind, but I wanted to kind of give you the floor to tell our listeners about the Grizzlies offseason, because the Mavericks and Grizzlies are basically in a deadlock right now for odds on division title this year. There's a lot of Mavs-Grizzlies rivalry potential.
Yeah, no, I definitely think we'll see kind of another iteration of the Grizzlies-Mavericks rivalry. Hopefully it hits another gear where there's maybe a playoff series next year, maybe a Western Conference Finals, who knows? But I mean, it's kind of the same as the Mavericks. It's just kind of fine. Everything's kind of at a standstill. I think the Kevin Durant stuff is just really holding everything up, not just for teams that want Kevin Durant, but for example, a big time Grizzlies Twitter favorite draft target is OG Anunoby. But you can't go get OG Anunoby because they're trying to use OG Anunoby to go get Kevin Durant. Mm-hmm. So you're just kind of stuck. And I think the thing that kind of caught everyone off guard is I kind of saw it coming with DeAnthony Melton and Kyle Anderson. I knew that they were probably going to move on from both of those guys. Melton's minutes dwindled in the playoffs, and the Grizzlies, they kind of need to moneyball Kyle Anderson's spot a little bit with Brandon Clark being extension eligible this offseason. So, but in the process, they made 4 draft picks. One of those draft picks is going to be on a 2-way deal. But it just kind of shocked everyone because it was kind of the same MO of the Grizzlies. They're like, oh, we're not going to draft these high upside guys. We're going to draft just really solid college players that just kind of fit in as, role players, Jake LaRavia, David Roddy.
Gosh,
and
LaRavia. LaRavia was like that guy, and the Mavericks couldn't really do it because they just have too many white guys. But really, LaRavia's game, that dude is going to be one that we're, as Mavs fans, screaming about again. I think he's a fun. There's just a lot, like, that's a guy in like 3 years we're gonna be like, of course they got Jake LaRavia. It's a real thing.
And it's funny because right now he's a little bit polarizing because after his first summer league game where he went 4 of 7 from 3, he just showed no inclination to shoot the basketball. And I'm over here just like, hey, can we just get him next to NBA playmakers?
Sure.
Like, your only point guards right now, or point guards, quote unquote, is a 20-year-old wing who is he's just going to summer league to improve on his ball handling, and Zaire Williams, and then Kennedy Chandler, who's probably going to be the starting point guard for the Hustle next season. Like, can we get him next to Ja? Get him next to Tyus? Get him next to Desmond Bane? I think LaRavia is going to be fine. But yeah, everyone's kind of, they're having this hoopla of like.
That's so funny because it's just that shows where you kind of are on the path to team building, where your expectations are now complaining about the solid 20-year-old rookie who may or may not actually see minutes for the team that is a Western Conference Finals or Finals contender, depending on your point of view.
That's right. Yeah. So everyone's talking about step backs and stuff. And I think the big thing in that is Jaren Jackson Jr. starting out the season on the injury reports. Granted, he's been kind of floating out there on social media like, hey, I may not miss any games.
What was the injury? Like, what was the surgery for? I don't remember. I did no research. It's August.
He had a stress fracture in his foot that was literally, the Grizzlies made 4 announcements that day. It was Tyus Jones re-signing, John Morant Supermax extension, Jaren Jackson Jr. injury, Kyle Anderson going to Minnesota. And that's and then aside from the John Conchar extension, we've gotten nothing else. So yeah, it was, and that's where I'm like, okay, if you want to worry about a step back, worry about it without Jaren Jackson Jr. Don't say they're going to take this catastrophic step back because they lost Kyle Anderson and Anthony Melton, who great role players, but in all
actuality, the hard part, the hard part is John Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. Like, that's the core. Everybody else is kind of a dude, and I'm going through your roster,
and then they got that like lottery ticket with Desmond Bane, where it's like, oh wait, he ends up being I'm sorry, I know that's a soft spot.
No, I love it. It's just, let's talk about it more. It hurts me.
But yeah, I'm just thinking, like, if you're worried because you don't know how long Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to be out, that's totally fine. But at the end of the day, they kept their top 7 guys. They kept John Morant, Desmond Bane, Dillon Brooks, Jaren Jackson, Steven Adams, Brandon Clark, Tyus Jones. And if you're thinking Zaire Williams takes a sizable step, then that's better than DeAnthony Melton was last season. So that's the top 8 right there. It boils down to whether or not the Grizzlies coaching staff actually commits to an 8-man rotation in the playoffs, because that's kind of where it kind of becomes a little bit of a struggle.
Well, the season's so long in that, there's nothing good about an injury to one of your top 3 players. There just is nothing good to it. But if you're looking for silver linings, you get more experience for these guys. So say the Grizzlies don't win 56 games, say they win 52, and all of a sudden you have, maybe like Zaire Williams continues to push through. Say like David Roddy somehow makes a case for like 10 minutes every third game. Like, it's the season, like that's where the Mavericks just ran out of gas because they did not have the bodies. And I read through this roster of all guys that could make an argument for minutes somewhere. I mean, that's the thing that if I'm a Grizzlies fan, where it's just like, if anything, you're having the exact opposite problem where you got to find minutes for people. Where if you say, who's the guy that you said is going to lead the G League hustle next year?
Kennedy Chandler.
So it's like that's just like at that point, it's like an embarrassment of riches. And, like the Grizzlies strike me as the type of team to where if the
Right.
right deal presents itself, you're gonna go get the kind of like the other the what do you want to call it? Like the piece that pushes you over the goal line. The either the veteran that's disgruntled or something. Like there's just a lot of optionality. Like I knew I was going to do this whenever we talk. Like this roster is disgusting and very good, and it makes me so mad. Like John Conchar, I play Xbox video games with the guy named Brian Schrader, who was telling me about Conchar like 5 years ago. And I was just like, no, like stop talking to me about this guy. And then of course he goes undrafted, and then he ends up with the Memphis Grizzlies. And then he's basically, he's a full-fledged, like he would be a rotation player on 25 teams in the league. Like this dude is something special. And it makes me so mad. This is an embarrassment of riches. You can go tell all your Grizzlies friends that you had to listen to me whine about this because, anyways. So, okay.
It's all good.
So we got the injury, and then we're just kind of playing wait and see. So understanding that, what kind of are your base level expectations? And let's assume nothing happens. Let's just assume that this is kind of the way you go into mid to late September in training camp.
Yeah. My expectations, and something I'm hoping and just knocking on wood for better health. The Grizzlies won 56 games last year with Dylan Brooks missing 50 games and John Morant missing 25. And they didn't play together. And I want to say the starting five of Morant, Bane, Brooks, Jackson, Adams had a net rating of 17 points per 100 possessions, but they only played 11 games. So
okay.
Like I want to say, Keith Parrish of Fast Break Breakfast said last season, I don't know if it was regular season and postseason, or I think it was just postseason, where lineups with any of the seven between those five, Brandon Clark or Tyus Jones, had a net rating of 25 or 26 points in the playoffs. Like that's insane.
Yeah.
My expectations. Zach Kleiman, GM's the Grizzlies, has said it. He said growth's not linear, and if we keep having these expectations, that like 56 wins turns to 60, 60 turns to 65, you're going to be disappointed almost every season.
Lord, yes. You were a Grizzlies fan. You've been a Grizzlies fan for a long time. Like when the Grizzlies were real good and consistent, like the Mavs in the 2000s, at a certain point you look back on that, and even though they didn't win a championship, like some of the best memories come during the parts where it's just like you got to have a little bit of fun with this, folks. And like it's funny you said about expectations, because my pinned tweet, even though I've been whining all summer, it's mainly a reminder for myself, but it's expectations are the thief of joy. And people just let this get away from them. And it's like watching John Morant play basketball is a special experience. That instead of like ranking and rating and comparing, it's like, how about you watch the guy fly and just enjoy it?
Watch the guy literally go for necks at the rim every single night. And it's also just one of those things where I just expect some sort of developments. I don't want things to kind of look like they're stagnating. I would hope the team kind of stays at above league average in offense and defensive efficiency. I want to see Zaire take some sort of. I'm not going to make some sort of points per game. I want to just see him improve his 3-point volume and show more willingness being a point of attack defender and a live dribble creator, since we don't really have one aside from Tyus Jones off the bench. And I would also say a reasonable expectation is Jaren Jackson Jr. going back to shooting 35 or 36% from three and 45, 46% from the field. Because last season, he almost got all-star consideration shooting 42% from the field and 31% from three as a 7-foot big man. His defense was that good. Like, I don't want to be too hot or come across as a homer or anything, but
you're allowed. I want that.
If he plays enough games and gets his efficiency back up, not only is he an all-star next year, but I think he's an all-NBA guy.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah, like if he keeps that defensive efficiency up and literally just kind of just being this free safety for the Grizzlies, which is what Steven Adams allows him to do,
Sure.
then,
The
I
fouling
think
stuff is always peculiar
the
because it's
fouling
like
is
I remember getting into an argument with the Mavs radio commentator during Jackson's freshman year where he's just like, he fouls too much. I'm like, do you not see what this guy can do? Like the
Right.
fouling is to me, fouling is a byproduct of just experience paired with kind of scheme. And if the Grizzlies don't mind it, you pick up this sort of stuff because fouling can serve a purpose. Some of his that I saw often, it's like it's ruling out the stupid ones, like the ones that are like the on the floor fouls. Those drive me crazy for a big man, but it's just he is a special player. Like I remember like one guy on our staff just like, well, Porzingis. I'm like, no, don't. We're not having this discussion. Like there is Jaren Jackson Jr. and then there is everybody else. Like that is it for me because he was who I had wanted. Because when it became clear the Mavericks weren't going to get Luka,
Right.
at least from falling down, I was like, I want him or Bridges out, who's now out in Phoenix, like that Bridges. And it just Jackson is just, it's taken a while because he's so young. Like, how old is he still? Is he still just 22, 21?
He's 22. I think he's going to start the season at 23.
See, and like that's just an experience over time thing, and he's missed enough games. So if he comes back, I mean, I wonder how much, like with this sort of injury, do you have like kind of a hope for number of games played for him this year?
I would put it at between 60 and 65.
Okay, that's not bad if you're coming into the
fine.
season. Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
And I know one of our columnists over at the Daily Memphian, Chris Harrington, pointed out it's like Marc Gasol had the same injury in his 30s and ended up having his best season of his career that next year. So, like, I think we just kind of got to pump the brakes a little bit on that. But, man, I gotta ask you, just how is it as a Mavs follower to go from covering Kristaps Porzingis to covering Christian Wood? Because that has to be a little bit of a headache.
It's interesting. I'm going to talk. I'm talking to this guy, this Rockets locked on guy. I think his name's Jackson.
Yeah.
And he's specifically coming to talk to me about the Christian Wood experience. I'm really looking forward to it because I think it's going to be funny because Wood needs this. He needs this, and doing Christian Wood things isn't going to fly. So I'm very curious in that regard to see how that goes.
Especially with J Kidd. J Kidd, I don't think it's going to fly. But also, you got like a little small glimpse of how good he was with Harden. And you're like, Luka is on par with that Harden. So maybe it works out. Maybe it doesn't. But I'm very interested to see it for our division. But I forgot to like kind of tie it into like team expectations for the Grizzlies. Just don't be a play-in team. Be a top 6 team in the Western Conference, and I'm pretty happy. I mean, obviously, if they're like last day of the season and it's do or die for the 6th spot, then yeah, that's probably a little disappointing. But other than that, pretty chill with me with just being a top 5 team in the Western Conference.
That makes sense. I mean, I'm struggling with this myself because the Mavericks outperformed expectations again and then lost their second best player. So it's what's sort of reasonable. And when you have the Clippers and you have the Nuggets coming back into the fray, kind of like a dual set of what are the Kool-Aid men running into the lineup, like things have a chance to get really interesting. The other thing, and I'm going to reference this on every podcast, I don't care. I think the way the NBA clusters some of these games now, particularly divisional games, can make a big difference to your record. Because like, say you get to play, like part of the reason why Boston went on a killing spree in February last year is because they got to play Detroit 3 times. Like that's fun. Right. If you get to play these like tanking teams, that can really help down certain elements of the season. So I think top 5 is probably pretty reasonable for the Grizzlies. I also think, it depends on some of these little improvements. I do have one more question for you. And then apparently my boss has called me twice. What sort of improvements are you looking for from Morant? Because, it's like guy approaching all like base volume. He would have been an all NBA guy. If he would have played probably 10 more games, he would have been an all NBA guy. What sort of things are you hoping for from him?
Yeah, I mean, last year he just came out of nowhere. I mean, I feel like we should have saw it coming when Zach Kleiman at the media day was like, "Hey, none of y'all asked me about John Morant, but he's going to be an all-star this season. Like, I'm not like that's not a prediction. Like, he's going to be an all-star," and he ends up being second team All NBA. Frankly, I think if he played enough games, he probably would have slid in that fifth spot for MVP voting instead of Tatum.
I think so.
So.
Tatum had such a narrative angle at that point it's like that one's sort of tough, but it's like also like with MVP voting, it seems to be so homogenous by the end of the year. I don't know, maybe we'll get away from that this year.
It's one of those things that like people determine in December, and then the rest of the season is used to kind of build other cases because like, oh wait, we built this case all the way up until December, and now the betting odds are like plus 200 for this guy to win MVP. But with Ja, I kind of just want to see him, make strides defensively. And he's never going to be this great on-ball defender. But can he jump into passing lanes enough to where, like, he's at least a threat? Like, I kind of look at a guy like Monte Ellis, where it's like...
Sure.
Monte Ellis wasn't a good defender. He had a crap ton of steals.
Sure.
He got averaged, like, 2 steals a game for most of his career. Like, could he just do that? Just gamble and go jump into passing lanes and play off the ball, because Dylan Brooks is going to be guarding your primary ball handlers.
Right.
So take advantage of that. And also, too, the mid-range jumper. The three-point shot, it's fine. He made enough strides in it last season where, like, anything else could be, especially
really
with
likes
how
the
much
floater, but I know what you mean. It's just another weapon in the arsenal, really. It's not like he needs to shoot volume, but if he's going to take a pull-up, then he can't be it's got to be a threatening shot. I can see that. Okay. I mean, but at this point, we're like, this is what we do with Luka. It's like nitpicking around the edges.
It's so
nitpicky.
Like,
how can I be upset about the 24, or how can I figure out a way for the 24-year-old, like, top 15 player to improve? So,
yeah. And also, like, it's insane with, like, for us with John Luka, it's like, okay, these guys were both probably top 10 in the league last year, and they're not even at their primes yet, and we're figuring out ways for them to improve. I mean, I see it all over with the Masters. It's like, oh, can Luka just be skinny going into the season?
That's right.
Which is nice. I mean, I think honestly, the big cornerstone improvement I want to see this season is I want to see Desmond Bane shoot even more threes.
I love that.
He was like I think he was ranked 37th in 3-point attempts per game. I want him in the top 10, top 5.
Right.
Because he jumped 3 points in 3-point percentage per, or 3-point attempts per game. He went from 4 a game to about 7 a game from his rookie to sophomore season, and didn't drop off the slightest in 3-point percentage. He actually went up by a couple decimal points. So I'm like, go get closer to like 8 or 9. Like kind of like Luka's at like 8.8. I feel like that would be wonderful. Because at that percent rate, that's another 3-pointer a game, which would in turn turn him into a 20-point per game scorer. So
right.
That's fine.
Well, this has been great, man. Thank you for taking time out of your day to talk with me.
I really appreciate it. Mavs Moneyball, it's my favorite non-Grizzly Bear Blues SB Nation blog. Y'all do good stuff, so I appreciate you on the podcast to kind of chop it up in this little dead month here.
You ever need me, I'm happy to talk. So you can find all of Parker and his entire team stuff over at grizzlybearblues.com. Really very good named website. Hey, and they also have one of the cooler SB Nation logos. We have the stupid cowboy hat that I hate. You guys also have a podcast on it's the Grizzly Bear Blues feeds, where if you're interested to see what they talk about, if you want to hear from things over there. All right. This has been great. This has been Kirk and Patrick, and you can find us, check the show notes for all this stuff on social media, and we will see you guys out there. And guys, I don't know when I'm recording again. I'm going on vacation next week, so I'm like trying to actually have things up for you. So if you don't get anything for a week, it's because I stopped trying, but I will do my best. And everybody enjoy surviving August. We'll talk soon.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.